I'd like to welcome to the show Wayne Stokley, the drummer of Prophets of Addiction.
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me.
So let's go back a little bit. What inspired you to become a drummer?
Oh, wow. From the earliest thing I can remember, I'm 45, so I was 4 when I saw the video for Jump from Van Halen on MTV. And I distinctly remember that moment as being the deciding factor of that's what I want to do. And I'm not sure why it was the drums, but right. There was just something about that drew me in. And it's basically been a lifelong obsession ever since that moment.
Right. Well, you know, the Van Halen had a lot of inspiration on a lot of people. Yeah,
and that's the weird thing about, I don't know what in my mind, most people naturally would have gravitated toward Eddie and the guitar or Dave or,
Right.
And for some reason for me, it was the drums.
And you also play for Lillian Axe.
Correct.
And you have another band too.
I'm in Lillian Axe, Prophets of Addiction. I have a kind of European style power metal band called Infidel Rising that I've been in since 2012 that me and the singer started, who the vocalist Travis is also now in Crimson Glory. Okay. And then I have a kind of rock and roll band around Dallas called Planet Size Ego. So quite busy.
Yeah, that keeps you going, man.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk Prophets of Addiction.
All right.
Face the Music CD just came out, last year? And it's been pretty well received. I mean, you guys have kept it kind of like an old school 70s rock and roll with some 80s glam in it and a little bit of essence of punk in it. I mean, was that planned to do that?
That's a perfect description. Yeah. When we went in to do this record, we actually started writing songs for this probably back in 2016. Okay. And then just, all kinds of things happen. Life happens, pandemics happen, people get busy. And so it kind of took a while, especially with all the different projects. And when we got to, when Leslie got the songs finalized, and it was probably, I'm trying to think timeline here, probably 2021 when it was 12 to 15 songs finalized. And that's when we had the discussion of, all right, we're going to go in and do this record. And the goal was to, I remember the goal was to, if this is the last record this band ever makes, make the exact record you always wanted to make sound wise, spend the money on the studio, on the producer. So, we went in at, the Count's compound in Las Vegas with Phil Soussan producing.
Right.
And, spent a lot of money on it. And it, when we got the basic tracks back, it came out I remember thinking it came out a little slicker than we may have originally intended, right. Because the first 2 records have definitely more of a punk or a street kind of rock and roll vibe.
Right.
But I also remember we decided that we really liked that sound. So the goal was to make a classic 70s type real rock and roll record for the modern times.
Right.
If that makes any sense at all,
Yeah.
And of course, there's still a bit of the 80s influence in there and the Hanoi Rocks and that kind of stuff. But, a lot of people are saying, oh, you made a hair metal record. And it's no, not really.
Yeah. I've noticed too, doing what I do, I've noticed a lot of bands lately are going back to that old school 70s rock and roll vibe. I mean, have you noticed that?
I probably have. Well, I've noticed it as far as bands that have come across my radar, like Dirty Honey or the Struts or stuff like that. And but I've also seen a shift of going back to more real type productions.
Right.
More like guys playing in a room instead of, especially coming from the metal world where everyone's got the same drum sound. Everyone's using this fake guitar processor, and records all start to sound the same, and then our ears get trained to expect those fake sounds as normal.
Right.
And I think it's reverting back a little bit.
Right, because I've noticed, I deal with, so many bands, but the thing is I've noticed, like, there's a band out there, I think they're called Red Voodoo, and they're going back to that old school 70s.
Is that the band Frank Hannon was working with?
I think so. It might be.
Yeah.
But it's, I think that's what the music scene needs, is this big jump start, and you guys really brought it with this album.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we collectively, we thought the songs were good, and we took the time. I remember the phrase going around a lot was, we just got to get it right. Don't rush it. Get it right.
Right.
And so we took the steps to do that. And now that mindset is going into, we haven't played live yet since the record came out. Right. It's like, well, we're waiting on the right opportunity instead of just going out there and throwing something together.
Right.
So it's all kind of meticulous in that aspect of it.
So I got to ask, how was it working with Phil?
Oh, it was great. Leslie had known Phil for quite a while. Back in the late 90s, early 2000s in Hollywood, him and Chad, our lead guitar player, had a band called City Girls Boys.
Right.
It was kind of like a glam punky rock and roll band, and they had met Phil. And Phil has been producing everything Leslie's done since that time because he just likes his songs and his voice. So I didn't know Phil going into it, other than, knowing who Phil is, obviously. Right. But he was great to work with. He's not the kind of overbearing type producer. He would be, we did most of the drums. Gosh, I don't think there's probably more than 3 takes on any of them. And he would just be like, well, if that was good or not. I don't need to tell you, do it 20 times. But where he really helped was in the arrangements. If I remember a couple of times where we would have, we'd be having discussions on, how long does this part need to go? Or I view that as a chorus versus a verse or whatever. And Phil would come in, pick up a bass or a guitar and say, all right, well, let's try this, and throw a bunch of different arrangements around. And 9 times out of 10, he was dead on correct. So It was the first time I'd ever really worked with someone in that kind of producer capacity.
Right.
Where they're actually contributing to how the arrangements and the songs are turning out. So that was very cool.
Right. And with you guys keeping it like 80s old school rock and roll, the song Let's Get High, I was watching the video for it, and you guys, from the time that kid rides up on a bicycle to the record store, it brought back like flashbacks to me, because that's the way it was back in the day. And it shows up in his bedroom and it's covered with posters. Yeah. And it was just,
that was definitely the goal. And with all of us being spread out over the country, so we're not really just able to get together to do all these videos. So we're like, okay, well, what can we do with using technology? And of course, we all have green screens and stuff to put together. What can we do to make something cool? And me and Leslie were discussing, what if we had this kind of plot with the kid and the whole, trying to tell the whole story in 3 minutes and 15 seconds or whatever, but also trying to make it look like if you turned on MTV in 1985, what would the video for this song look like?
Right, exactly.
Because everybody's just doing straight performance stuff now or using tons of special effects, but it was like back in the day, I think of videos like The Right to Rock by Keel and stuff like that, where they told this little story.
Right.
Going through the song and it wasn't just the band playing. So that was the goal for that.
And the song, Let's Get High, is about them days. Listening to the record on the turntable and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's about getting high off the music,
Right, exactly. And the thing is this generation will never know that. You know what I'm saying? They'll never know what it's like to run down to a record store and grab that record when it's out.
Yeah, there's a handful of them that are into it, but I don't know if they're into it like we were into it, or if they're into it because it's the kind of hip thing to, vinyl's kind of back,
Right. But
I don't know if they're going home and
back in the day.
yeah, I don't know if they're going home and reading every word on the record sleeve and obsessing over every little thing, like it's the most important thing in the world, like we all used to,
Yeah.
But, I come from an era I can remember being in third grade and getting a $10 allowance every day. And I can distinctly remember when Night Songs from Cinderella came out, and that was going to be the one record I got with that allowance. And it's like you worshiped that thing.
Oh, yeah.
You listen to every song over and over, read every lyric and liner note. And now I have every record in the world on the phone that I'm talking to you on now.
That's it.
So how can you possibly appreciate it as much?
Right.
When it's all readily available anytime you want it,
Right. And you guys also covered Rod Stewart's Maggie May, which
that's a funny story.
Let's get into it because I think it's a phenomenal version. I love it. I think it's awesome. I play it all the time on the show.
I'm finding that people either love it or they hate it and think it's blasphemy, and I thought that was going to be the case. And going into that, we knew we were going to cover the song. We knew we wanted to make it a little faster, and we wanted to make it kind of like a punk rock kind of version of the song.
Right.
But we made a mistake when we were tracking it, and we forgot to tune it down a step so Leslie could easily sing over it in the key of the other songs. So the whole bed of the track was done before we realized that when we were mixing it, before Leslie did the vocals. So we're like, all right, we just go scream over it and do the best you can. And he went and cut the vocal. And when I first heard the demo of the vocal, I did not know if I liked it or not. Phil liked it immediately.
Right.
And after listening to it a couple of times, I was like, okay, this is great. Because if you really listen to the track, the music underneath it is pretty spot on with the original. It's faster, it's a little chunkier, but it's pretty clean.
Right.
And then you have this screaming punk rock vocal over the top of it, And I remember telling the guys, people either going to love this or they're going to hate it, but that's perfect. Leave it. It's perfect as it is. So I grew to like it. Some people still don't like it. Some people love it.
I love it. I mean, when I first got it in here to the studio, I'm like, what's this? And I see Maggie May, because that's like one of my favorite Rod Stewart songs. I think it is for a lot of people. And I'm like, wait a minute, what's this? And I played it, and I'm like, whoa, I really like this. This is awesome. So
I remember playing it for a buddy of mine that's a journalist in Austin, and he's like, man, his quote was, man, it takes a lot of balls to throw snot on a classic song like that.
Awesome.
We're like, yeah, we kind of knew, I get it if people don't like it, but it's cool when people do like it, though.
Right. Yeah, I think it's pretty awesome, man. Are you guys working on any live shows coming up for this album?
We are. There's a handful of shows that it's coming down to the wire about a week or so that might be announced, opening for somebody big that fits our style.
Okay.
But if that doesn't happen, then we're kicking around the idea of maybe doing one or two shows, maybe something in Vegas or California or Seattle to kind of kick it off. And then we're in contacts with a couple of bands of possibly going out for a few weeks or a month in the summer and opening for some well-known bands that are friends of ours.
Okay.
We kind of did. We definitely wanted to open for somebody that's established, even though we're not necessarily a new band. To a lot of people we are, so we didn't think it benefited us to just go out on our own on a Tuesday night and play for 20 people.
Right. Right.
So we're kind of trying to, like I said, the whole idea of the whole concept of the record was don't rush anything and do it right. So now we're trying to apply that to the live aspect also.
Right.
But we'll definitely be getting out and playing sooner than later. We're just waiting for a good opportunity.
Right. So you guys are working with Brave Word Records.
Yeah.
And how's that working out for you?
Oh, it's been great so far. I was already on Brave Words with Lillian Axe, so we shopped this record to a bunch of different people. And the thing with Brave Words that we like is, and I'm sure everyone's noticed because the promo for the record's everywhere, is that they still promote the record after it's released. And it seems like so many labels these days hype up a record, right, release 5 songs as singles, and then you forget that it even came out because you feel like it's already been out. Right. And then after the Friday comes when the record's released, it's dead. No one talks about it anymore. And Brave Words is trying to do it the old school way, where they keep the record out there, they keep the singles coming, and right. Michael Bramble is our PR guy, and he's like, anything we get, we'll promote. We'll promote this until you want to stop promoting it. Right. So we couldn't be happier with the level of promo that it's getting and the life that it seems to be getting.
And that's the way it should be. I mean, a lot of bands, nowadays they'll post on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever. And, hey, our album's out. And then that's the last you hear of it, Yeah.
I mean, it's whether we like it or not, we're in a world where you have to be in people's faces all the time, every day.
Right. I know.
A lot of people don't want to just, hey, I've got to film something on my phone talking about a song, but that's what it takes. That's what people want.
Right.
And it's a super, super crowded market. So people forget. So right. I always feel like, I'm old school. I don't like the game necessarily, right. Some aspects of it, but you either adapt to it or you get left behind.
Right, exactly.
So being older people trying to navigate and figure out the social media landscape is definitely challenging, but it's something you got to do,
I can agree with you there. I still have problems.
Yeah. I'm like every day trying to come up with things. And I'm like, how do these kids do it? How do they get these?
I know. I don't
know.
You got to have like a 16-year-old in your back pocket because they know everything about it. To where us older people were like, what?
I remember really researching it at one point about 5 years ago and looking at all this stuff about, well, you need to post it this time, and it needs to have this. I'm like, man, this is too much for me. This is like a scientific theory on how to do this, Right. It's crazy.
So is there anything new coming out for Lillian Axe and your other band?
Well, Lillian just went into the studio to start work on the new record. We went in a couple of weeks ago and we laid the basic tracks down for the first 3 songs. We're going to be doing it in, there's going to be 10 songs. We're doing it in 2, 3-song increments and then a 4-song increment. And Steve and I believe Sam are going back this weekend to finish up little bells and whistles and guitar solos. Then Brent will come in and cut the vocals, then we'll move on to the next 3. So it'll probably be finished May or June.
Okay.
July at the late. I mean, the goal is for it to come out this year, so I would guess September, October. I think it's when the label wants it. So we just started that.
And what about your other band, Infidel?
Infidel has about Infidel Rising has about 15 songs written. Oh. And this is the first stuff with our new guitar player, Alan DeLeon Jr., who's also on Hellstar. And we're kind of figuring out, because we're all very busy. Travis has a lot of stuff going on with Crimson Glory, but we're trying to figure out what we're going to do with the record. Are we going to give it to a label? Are we going to put it out ourselves? So we're probably going to start floating out 1 or 2 songs online just to gauge what the interest level is, and then go from there.
Okay. Sounds good.
And Planet Size Ego, the band in Dallas, we've got a couple of, we got about 3 songs demoed. That we're going to start throwing out on Bandcamp or online, just see what happens with that. That's not like a Like, we're not looking for a label or anything for that right now. We're just kind of having fun around town, but the songs are really good. So we're definitely going to put them out there and see what people think.
I will have to check that out. Sounds interesting.
Awesome.
So I won't hold you up too much longer. I got one more question for you. What advice would you give aspiring musicians who want to follow in your footsteps?
I want to say quit, but I don't want to say quit. That's the stock funny answer.
Yeah.
Now, aspiring musicians in 2025 at the state that things are in now is just, if you love it, do it. Don't expect anything from it. Don't expect to make a living. Don't even expect to make a penny.
Right.
If you can do that because it's in you to do it, you enjoy it, and you're not doing it for any other superficial reason than your love of the music and wanting people to like the songs, then do it full on. But if you do it if you're doing it for the wrong reasons, you're not going to last.
Right.
In today's music world. You're just not. You're going to be done in a week. Right. Because chances are you're not going to, quote unquote, make it, whatever that even means. Chances are you're not going to get paid. I mean, you can get paid if you play other people's songs, but if you're doing original music and it's really in you and you can't see yourself doing anything else, then go for it. Because that to me is what it's about.
Right. Right.
Certainly not about money, because there's not a lot of that, unless you get real lucky.
Right.
And, you have to not care. You just have to not care.
Right. And the thing is, it's not like it was back in the day. I mean, nowadays, you guys worked hard back in the 80s and all that stuff playing, and you guys still do. But with the technology changing the way it has, now you have AI coming into play. I don't know. And everything's on a streaming platform.
Yeah.
I just don't get it.
It's there's no gatekeepers per se anymore. Right. It's all free. People just I have this funny thing I say of, it's nobody thinks twice about just stealing your music and listening to it on the internet, but not once have I ever seen anybody walk up to our merch booth at the show and just take a CD and walk off.
Right.
So at some point they know it's not free,
right. Yeah, but it's like, I try to push for you artists all the time, go buy the merch, pick up the CD, buy the CD, buy the vinyl, whatever. Because, I mean, you guys work hard. You guys work your tails off to, bring the world great music. And yet,
Yeah, the last West Coast run we just did with Lily and Girls School in Alcatraz, we were in the van for 9,000 miles for 3 weeks with very few days off and sometimes 8-hour, 9-hour drives on show day.
Right.
And the amount of money we came home with would astound you, and not in a good way. Right.
Exactly.
Most people would not believe it. It's basically almost nothing, but that can't be why. And, there's things that factor in. The economy's terrible right now. And everybody gets that stuff.
Right.
And there's a lot of bands out there, but that's why, sometimes when bands hear comments from people like, oh, I would have came out, but, it was a Tuesday and I would have been up an extra hour, and the band is thinking, okay, well, we drove 8 hours to get there today. We loaded in ourselves. We've got one crew member.
Right.
Sorry, not getting that extra hour of sleep would kill you.
Right. Exactly.
But it's like,
us diehards, we go out in the middle of the week, come home at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning after seeing a show, and get up and go to work at 6.
Right. And that's really who you do it for. I played in, I was just having this conversation the other night with somebody. I play in a Bon Jovi tribute band and a couple others just for fun and for money and stuff. And it's like, I played in front of an 18,000 seat sold out amphitheater playing Bon Jovi songs.
Right.
And with people going nuts. But I would rather, and I'm not knocking that. I mean, it's great fun. You get treated well. You make a lot of money. I'm not knocking that world. There's certainly a obviously there's a market that justifies its existence,
Right.
because of the crowds it draws. But if gun to my head, I would rather play in front of 50 people that knew my songs.
Right. Exactly.
That were passionate about it than play in front of 15,000 people where you're just kind of a, background music byproduct, So that's really what you have to do it for. I got into it because I wanted to be a part of songs that like reach people how songs reached me.
Right. Exactly.
So that's why, and I like to think that, there's still people that are been in it for a long time that it's kind of their job, but I like to think that that's why people, why most people still do it, because in the rock world, pop success is not, there's no carrot at the end of the string like there used to be.
Right. Well, see, that's the thing too. I noticed, like with FM radio, they keep playing the same songs over and over. Now, don't get me wrong. The 80s was a history-changing time, with all the bands coming out back in. But the thing is, they keep playing them over and over and over. It's all the same thing. And, that's why I do what I do, is because to get the new music out there, that people need to hear, Prophets of Addiction, and, whatever it may be, Yeah,
we had the opportunity to, somebody came to us and was like, hey, do we want to shop this to radio? And I'm like, I don't even know what that means now.
Right.
I have no idea. Other than internet radio, I don't know. I mean, in Dallas, we have barely a top 40 rock station left.
Right.
And I haven't listened to music radio in years, so I'm probably out of touch, but I don't think they're playing a lot of new stuff.
No.
And I don't even really know how you would get your music on FM radio to try to break something without spending $500,000.
Right.
That's how that stuff works.
Right.
Maybe people don't realize that, but that's how it works now.
Right.
So I don't even know how. Somebody was telling me about, you have to get on Spotify, play it. I don't know. It's.
I don't support Spotify.
At some point, I just start saying, okay, well, how do you fight it? All right. I've had friends of mine that have put records out that they're like, yep, we're not putting it on streaming services. We're going to make people buy it.
That's it.
And then I'm like, well, did that work? And they're like, it kind of worked. They're like, we made more money, but less people heard it. And I'm like, yeah, it's so weird right now.
Right.
But it's never going back,
Right. No, I think it's only going to get worse.
Yeah.
So. All right, Wayne, thanks for coming on the show, man. Greatly appreciate it. Can you tell the people where they can get the album at, Prophets of Addiction, Face the Music?
You can. Obviously, you can stream the record everywhere. But you can go. It just came out. The physical release just came out. It's basically, we got a list of the record stores. There's like 2,000 of them. So I'm guessing that it's basically almost every record store in the country.
Okay.
As of a week ago. So, but if not, it's on, it's on Amazon. You can go to prophetsofaddiction.com and get it directly from our website.
Right.
And you can ask to get it signed and stuff like that. But so it's out there anyway. And it's just, Prophets of Addiction on Facebook, Prophets of Addiction official on all the, we're on every one of the social media things, of course. So
right.
you can find us. It's out there.
All right, Wayne. Thanks for taking the time out and coming on Metal Shop 101. And
I really appreciate you taking the time and having me.
Look forward to seeing you out there on the road, man.
That sounds good, man. Thank you a lot.
All right, no problem.